All right, 11:02, let's get started. Good morning, everyone on the West Coast. Good afternoon, New York. Hello, everyone elsewhere. And welcome to our fireside chat on aligning product and marketing for successful product launches. It's great to see so many of you in the audience. I see more people joining. It tells me that fully aligning product and marketing is something many product managers and product marketers, myself included, haven't figured out to 100%. So we brought in our experts, and hopefully we're going to make it as informative as possible, but also keeping it a little lighthearted to some degree, so we can have a fun conversation and at the same time kind of dive deeper into the topic so everyone can leave today's discussion with some applicable knowledge that you can go ahead and apply in your day-to-day job. So what I'm going to do right now, instead of me introducing everyone, I'm going to tell you who I am, and I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. Okay, so my name is Anya Pratskovich. I am at Mixpanel. I've been at Mixpanel for about 2 years now. I work in product marketing. And before that, I worked at several companies in advertising tech space. So I'm super excited about the topic, LinkedIn advertising, product launches, and also excited about having each and every one of you join the call. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to Arjun and then to Gil.
Okay, thank you, Anya. Hi, everyone. I am so pumped to be here. Looks like we have almost 176 people today, so great to have you here from all across the world. As Anya mentioned, I'm a product marketer here with Gil at LinkedIn, and I focus on our ad formats in the LinkedIn feed. And I've been here about 4 years and excited to just talk to you about our partnership. And outside of work, I'm a beginner singer, intermediate writer, and lover of all things Dallas sports. So awesome to be here.
Great.
Cool. And I'm Gil. Also, I'm really excited to be here. Product manager at LinkedIn. Been at LinkedIn about 4 years on our marketing solutions team, focused on how we build formats and advertising capabilities for advertisers to use LinkedIn. Outside of work, Arjun, you didn't prep me on that one. Definitely big into the outdoors, cycling, running, hiking, all those things. Anya, hand it back to you.
Awesome. So let's get into it. I was looking at some LinkedIn stats yesterday, and it looks like LinkedIn is turning 18 years old this year, 2021, which makes it pretty much one of the oldest social networks to date, currently in use. I mean, 18 is not that, I guess, big of an age in terms of like human years. And I also looked at another stat that your average age for the audience on LinkedIn is somewhere between the ages of 25 and 34. So millennial audience. And so my first question is for you, Gil, as a product manager behind LinkedIn ad stories. Can you tell me a little bit about the product that you guys launched, Stories, and how you thought about building this product for this demographic?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I'll start just with a brief introduction of kind of LinkedIn lines of business, and then kind of get into the product piece from there. So LinkedIn has, the consumer products that we build, the app, the website you use, get a job, put up a profile, connect with people you know, and have professional conversations, things like that. There's a few different ways, few different businesses that LinkedIn has. One of the largest businesses at LinkedIn is the marketing solutions business. So we build advertising and mostly B2B focused marketing products for folks that are working at companies trying to get the message out there, especially for high consideration products like SaaS and anything else that might be sold B2B. Arjun and I have been partnering for about 2 years now. We work together on kind of all of our feed-based ad products, sponsored content with images and links in the feed, video ads, things like that. And most recently on the Stories ads project that you mentioned, Anya, which is kind of extending part of the ads marketplace that we have into a new experience that LinkedIn launched recently called Stories. So a lot of work kind of went into figuring out the path that we were going to take, kind of getting to the product that we built for Stories ads in the last 2 years or so. Is there any area you want me to start, Anya? Like any particular part you want me to focus in on there?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, like how you thought about building this product for this demographic. And obviously there's like two sides of the wheelhouse in terms of LinkedIn social networks. There, and I guess any social network, there's the user part, and then there's the B2B part, which is advertiser. And I'm curious, I'm guessing those audience do overlap. So your audience of advertisers with in-house or agencies, they're pretty much the same kind of that like millennial audience. And I wonder if that played a role in how you guys kind of thought about stories specifically.
Yeah, no. So I'll start maybe kind of on the user side. So LinkedIn, kind of everything that we build starts with our members and member value, right? I think one thing that's very clear, kind of like looking, outside of LinkedIn's products, is that the world and social networks broadly have moved to formats that are, very focused on mobile, ephemeral, visual, kind of the stories style of, building products that people can use to connect with each other, whether it's professionally or it's personal, right? So that's kind of this broad macro trend that LinkedIn is a part of in some ways. And so moving to stories is really about thinking, how can we give people value kind of by connecting with each other over the existing network with this new format that's taken hold, and it makes it easier to share, easier to talk about roles you're hiring for, easier for you to talk about and give and get advice from people, things like that. And it's really about thinking about this medium and the new kinds of opportunities that it provides for people to give and get help from each other, whether it's hiring or anything else. So that's really been a big focus, I think, especially on the consumer side of the product. On the monetization and marketing side, we obviously, we have a business that happens in the feed. It's a substantial source of monetization. So it's a big source of both customer value and revenue for LinkedIn. And so kind of part of what we think about when we're introducing a new product experience like stories is, what are the product and revenue and monetization trade-offs that we do have by introducing kind of this new product that starts to shift some of people's attention and engagement from one part of the product to the other. And so that's one piece that we definitely thought about a lot as we started working on stories ads and kind of moving in that direction. Arjun, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, as we think about LinkedIn specifically, we all make sense to our audience and our professional base. And LinkedIn Stories, as Gil mentioned, is applicable really to our audience, and we want to make it relevant for them. So when we built the organic product, we built the paid product, we want to make sure it really separates itself from other platforms that may offer the similar things. So a lot of work, a lot of insight, and a lot of research went into making sure this experience was just right for all types of audiences.
Awesome. I have a follow-up question for you, Arjun. So I know you're the mastermind behind how LinkedIn actually positions its advertising products, and not just LinkedIn ad stories, but also some of the core LinkedIn ad products. And advertising is a very competitive area, especially right now. Everyone is competing for advertising budgets, and with COVID, we know that the budgets are shrinking a little bit, so it makes it even more difficult to reach those audiences. So I'm wondering, like, how you think about positioning of LinkedIn ads stories, both against your competition as you compete for those advertiser budgets, and also against the core ad products at LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and something probably all the product marketers listening in on the call are thinking about. So a quick background, most of the ad products that LinkedIn has been in the feed, such as video, image, and carousel. And the feed has been around a long time, and it's promoted certain types of behaviors, such as maybe a bit more formal, a bit more polished. In the last few years, though, members have been coming to us and sort of showing a more blended life, their personal, their professional, and wanting a better outlet to do that. And this is why we built LinkedIn Stories. And we ran some more insight, and we found that our members really want to connect with brands kind of that do the same, being more open, more authentic. They really want to see more from the brand. And that was a light bulb moment for our marketing team and myself. Is like, we can position it similarly for LinkedIn Stories ads. We can let professionals meet more of their brand. And then we wanted to ladder our positioning into that macro message of meeting more with your brand, such as one is getting noticed, which getting more reach and brand awareness. Number two is getting results, so which is turning awareness into action. And number three is like measuring results, being able to understand the ROI better. And once we have those three key pillars, we were able to kind of ladder in the core product benefits, such as full edge-to-edge viewability, lead capturing, retargeting, all the goodness in advertising that we can apply for it. So my main point for those listening here, those product marketers and product managers, is focus on the contrast. What makes your product that much more different from your competitor, and maybe what makes your product more even different from your own products, and that can really lead to some insight. Gil, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I think Arjun, you touched on a lot of the heart of it. I think, you know, it's so you know, when you look at like the LinkedIn feed and the kinds of conversations and things that are happening in there, right? It's so text oriented, and it's so kind of oriented around like what's the kind of content that you can read and kind of consume in a very like traditional feed environment, right? And stories really flips that, right? Like there's no there's really like no text unless the person that created the story wants to add it, right? It's really like a visual first storytelling method. And I think how that translates into the value for marketers is that it does kind of, you know, slice a different demographic in terms of who you're actually going to be able to reach. And so I think reach is definitely one of those things that we're going to be optimizing for and spending a lot more time on in the stories ads product in the future as we continue to build on that advantage.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the timing of this launch is also like perfect, because I see the social network, I guess, as a user on both sides of the house, as an advertiser and also as a user of LinkedIn. I see more people kind of trying to reach their audience and build their personal brand, as well as kind of show off their professional achievements. And the line between sharing some personal updates and business updates is getting very, very blurry. Yeah, and I think LinkedIn ads stories is this format that kind of, I guess, combines the two. And there are pros and cons to, I guess, both oversharing personal and business. I've seen posts on LinkedIn, people complaining about people getting too personal on LinkedIn. So there's, I guess, several viewpoints around it. But let's get into the collaboration between product and marketing. And my first kind of collaboration question is to you, Gil. I guess, how do you work with your marketing team at LinkedIn, and at what stage of product development does the marketing team usually get involved?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, the place to really start with this question is, you know, the fact that the team and the products that we build are marketing solutions, like first and foremost, right? So just from like the name of the team and the products and the kinds of folks that we're serving, like the marketing team is integral at every step of the product development process, because there are many ways in which the marketing team is the user, right, for the kinds of things that we're building. So I think, you know, when we've been talking about kind of stories and what that could do for LinkedIn, and on the monetization side, kind of how that translates into a different value prop for advertisers, I think Arjun has been involved since, you know, day one, the kind of initial, you know, seed group of people beginning to toss around this idea and play with its implications for our business and for the product and for the company as it continues to grow. So I think that's a big part, and that's something that's maybe specific to you know, teams that are building ad tech and marketing adjacent products, right? I think there are other you know, common principles of product development that I think are important to emphasize, which I think myself, Arjun, our team are pretty good at. The first and most important one I think about is you know, product development as this kind of like open circle of collaboration, right? There's no like hub and spoke model that we use where like the product manager is the center, or the engineering manager is the center, or any function is like kind of the one go-between for all other people that are involved in developing a new product. It really is like an open circle where you can have conversations between marketing and engineering, between product and design, between any two groups of kind of core stakeholders across that whole group, marketing certainly included, and a very core part of that. And no like, you know, gatekeeper for making those conversations happening. So anytime Arjun wants to go and, you know, speak to the engineering team to figure out like what are the implications of a change, I'm never going to stand in his way, of course. And I'm certainly going to encourage that communication to happen. So I think a really big part of the process kind of starts with starts with that open circle of communication kind of first and foremost.
Yeah, I think you guys have a pretty unique position in that sense, just like based on some of my conversations with other PMs and product marketers, because marketers are the target audience of your product. So PMs oftentimes want to talk to customers as much as possible and not so much with marketers. So I guess if marketers are customers, then that kind of fixes it. So my question, Arjun, is for you, and I guess this answers part of it, but I'm curious, like, what strategies do you recommend for product marketers who are listening in, who may not be maybe the target audience for PMs, for establishing that trusting relationship with the product team? How do you help them understand the value of product marketing?
Yeah, Gil said it really beautifully, and I agree that every best collaboration starts with mutual trust. And I found the best way for a product marketer, best way for us to build trust with your PM is to be an insight champion. And it starts with two main areas. Number one is the market. What are the biggest trends happening? What are the macro forces that play in the industry that you're operating in? What's growing, what's shrinking? And this is a great way to understand this market. And one way I do this is using an RSS feed like Feedly, or even using email newsletters, which pulls in kind of multiple publishers and also competitors' info. And so knowing the market, I can go to Gil and say, here's where I really think the puck is going. Here's where I think this area is maybe needing more investment. Here's something that we can maybe deprioritize. So understanding the market. Number two is a customer. And I find that product marketers can do this in two ways. One is qualitative, which is working with your user research team or yourself to pull together kind of quick customer interviews. And number two is quantitative, maybe working with your research team to run a survey and like adding value and packaging those insights in a readout. And this is what I find is if you can do this early, let's say the first quarter, you can go to your PM and say, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm learning about our market. Here's what I'm learning about our customers. Here's my recommendation. If we know A, we can do B in our product. If we know Y, we can do Z with our products. And I find that working with Gil early into these, before you even work on a spec document, before you work on PRDs, you can have conversations. And that conversation is really good about building that trust, building that understanding. Because at the end of the day, it really boils down to Gil and I both care about this market. We both care about this customer. And we both care about doing and building great products together. So let's do this thing together. And that's my advice to those listening in.
And we could both get a little bit wild-eyed. Don't forget Arjun.
That's right.
This is great. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a really healthy, beautiful relationship just based on the things we have discussed, and also like the burgundy color match here. So it almost sounds too good to be true. So I'm curious, like, what are the biggest challenges in Silicon Valley? We like to call them learning opportunities or stretch opportunities. You guys faced in your previous launches that you collaborated on? And I know Gil or Arjun, whoever wants to jump in first and share.
I think, yeah, I can go ahead and start. I think in general, you know, some of the challenges, I think, and some of it is maybe unique to our, you know, position on the team at LinkedIn, and something like that is kind of, you know, working on our sponsored products, both in feed and in stories. It's kind of at the intersection of monetization and consumer products, kind of at, you know, really at that juncture between the new kinds of content products that we build and the ways that we monetize them. And there's two enormous organizations kind of on both sides of that juncture, right? And so the kind of shifting priorities and kind of the discussions that have to happen in order to align timelines and kind of the emphasis that we're going to have on one product versus another in the given quarter half that we're going into. I think that's definitely been one of the biggest challenges that Arjun and I have had, and not necessarily like aligning with each other and getting on the same page, but that broader organizational alignment at a company as big and sophisticated and complicated as LinkedIn, I think, has definitely been a big challenge. We, you know, Arjun and I have lots of wild and crazy ideas for new ad products to build, but there's no guarantee that the two of us are going to be able to team up and convince the other folks we need to in order to get them done.
Yeah, and I would say a few things. One is when you have big dreams at places, you have to kind of realize their trade-offs, and their trade-offs in resourcing, trade-off in headcount. And the challenge is we have to be really sharp in understanding about what needs to be going now, what can go later. And that's a conversation Gil, myself, the engineering manager, product designer always having of what can we build and really kind of meets the challenge and the need now, and then what can we kind of move on to the future. So I feel like that discussion, you never know if you're getting it right, and you never know if you're going to meet product market fit earlier or later, which is why we kind of run large betas, we run testing environments to make sure that they're working right. And that's why we're running a larger beta for our product right now, because we want to make sure we get it right. But that's the challenge, is we don't know until we know. So we're trying to put the best case scenario and the best experiments out there to make sure that's a reality. Of course, also bugs too. That's also a challenge.
Every time, every product has that for sure. So it sounds like you guys have this great collaboration going on, which, assuming it's a big company, it gets more complex the bigger the company gets, and the more political, more layers of management, a lot of ideas, everybody's trying to prioritize their thing. And before COVID, were you guys located in like the same office so you can kind of discuss ideas very closely, and how has it changed post-COVID? Like, do you have some meetings every week, or how do you sync up and kind of stay on the same page?
Yeah, so there's one way in which we definitely got very lucky, I think, given our pre kind of COVID working style and kind of where we ended up today, given everything that's going on. I was based in New York pre-COVID, and Arjun was based in the Bay Area. Right? And so we'd already kind of have had a smooth collaboration process over Zoom and using documents and trying to do things asynchronously, things like that. So those kinds of remote best practices, given that divide, I think was already pretty well in place.
Yeah, in terms of meetings, Gil actually runs a really great cross-functional meeting every week. And it's not just with product marketing, it's with design, it's with engineering, it's with support. And it's a core group, and these are the builders of products. And Gil, to his credit, is strong about bringing the right people in the room, because all of us comes with a different point of view. There are many times our engineering manager said, this is where we're struggling with some sprint planning on getting this out there. Or I say, hey, I saw this article I want to share with you, or I talked to this customer, or I talked to this salesperson. And I feel this forum, if you can do this to the product marketers and managers listening, is get your roundtable, get them meeting weekly, and get your core group to discuss the issues at hand, so you can kind of problem solve together. No products are built in vacuums. And I think Gil and other great product managers out there pull the right people all in the room together, so we can do this collaboratively and make better decisions together.
Yeah, I'll build on that a little bit. I think one of the things that Arjun is calling out that's great, and maybe Arjun, you're giving me a little bit too much credit for how good I am at these meetings. But I think that aspect of kind of having the partners really not just meeting at the round table every week and like talking about whatever it is the PM or whoever is running the meeting wants to talk about, but it's having folks really buy into that forum. The marketer comes with the industry trends, the engineering manager comes with talking about a new system that we're building that we can depend on for building X, Y, and Z that we want to do next. So everyone kind of has a real stake in making the meeting a success and something that's interesting, engaging for everyone around, so that we can build the best products tomorrow.
Great. I see more questions rolling in from our audience, so let's switch gears a little bit and turn the attention over to some questions from our audience. Anonymous attendee is asking, product managers as well as product marketers are responsible for user research. Where does this overlap, and what are the differences in the lenses through which they approach it?
Arjun, you want to start that one?
Yeah, so user research, so that's a luxury at a big company where you have a user research team dedicated on the kind of design aspect of it. So in many things, it's sort of a conversation with your user research team. For example, I find the user research team is really good at interaction design and making those questions on what should we actually build in terms of the navigation, the the user experience, but a product marketing can do larger trends on like, what's the challenge you're trying to solve? What's the job you have to get done? What's the objective you're trying to do? So I try to structure my interviews more higher level, on more challenge focused, more what kind of solutions we can build. And my user research team can help us more narrow it down further when we have a mock, we have a design, when we have something that we feel that is ready to place to just get experiments on, they can focus on that. So product marketers, more higher level, challenge, solution oriented, while the user research team can focus more on design and feedback there.
But yeah, and I think just one thing to add to that as well. I think, you know, especially with when you're building marketing products, right? Like there's a lot of layers to it, right? And there's different kinds of users that you care about for a marketing customer. And so I think that kind of like integrated approach across, you know, how easy is this kind of thing to use for end users is very much kind of a user research question in a way. And how valuable is this for decision makers is kind of like a product marketing and product question. And product marketing, I don't know, maybe Arjun, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think kind of has a foot in kind of both of those conversations. But that idea of kind of like, what's the value? Like, how do we really demonstrate what customers get from this is kind of like this other question that's a little bit further from research. And so that's maybe an answer that's very specific to the marketing domain. But I think it's a framework you can use to think about whatever it is that you're working on. Like, what are the differences between products that are easier to use and kind of this, you know, bigger picture idea of like, where does this fit into the overall customer's approach to this class of problem, right? Which is like the whole marketing budget in our case.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question. And this one I think is coming probably from a product manager, so it might be one for you, Gil. How do you recruit for beta and collect feedback?
Actually, I'll let Arjun go ahead and take that one.
Okay.
Yeah, a beta is so important for us on the LinkedIn team, actually our all product team, because it helps us understand product market fit in a scaled experiment. And the way we recruit for the beta in 3 different areas. One is we have the luxury of a sales team when you're in a B2B world to help us work with clients directly to get them and activate them. So we as a product marketer have to give them a little bit of resources of why you should join our beta, what you can get, what's the advantage of being an early adopter. So once we have beta participants who are ready to activate, the way we get feedback in 3 main areas. Number one, internal. We have a small sales group with beta participants to really meet with us once every 2 weeks, once every month to understand what's happening with your customer, what's really working for them, what's not. And then Gil is usually in those meetings, our engineering manager using those meetings. So they're hearing, you know, straight from the source of who and what they're saying, and sometimes even engineers too. So that's kind of the internal sales group. Externally, we run 2 things. We run surveys with our beta participants, and then we also run customer calls as well. And we package all this up. I think if there's one thing I want everyone here to remember is your goal is to package it all up, make it easy, put it all in a document that you can help cascade to your product manager, to the engineering manager, to everyone, so we can absorb these insights together. And then Gil does a great job of helping take the
I think Arjun is having some technical trouble. We'll wait for him for a minute or so to reconnect. Gil, did you have any? Do you want to add something?
Sure. Yeah, I think Arjun was definitely getting at the core of it, and he is kind of the expert in this domain for our team. The thing that I'll add that I think he touched on just before he cut out is, I think for product managers especially, like the metrics orientation is such a strong drive at LinkedIn. I think as well, it's a very like metrics driven, very measurement oriented company in many ways, but that is a broad pattern for product managers, I think, across the industry in lots of ways. But going to those meetings that Arjun mentioned, where you have your internal users that are using the product, giving you the feedback, and like you can really like, you can feel how difficult it is to use, right? Like how painful is it for them to go through this flow that you've introduced into the product, or how little it fits in with everything else that they're doing. You can really like get that contrast out of that engagement that you have with with a person on the sales team who's really having to actually use it or work with a customer who's using it directly. And so I think that is such a critical supplement to any data you're looking at, any graphs that are telling you the performance of the product during the beta or otherwise.
Yeah, I've got a good one that might be applicable for a lot of attendees, and I think Gil, you might be able to speak to that while we wait for Arjun to rejoin. What is your launch checklist? AKA, what are the items that you run through before each launch to make sure all systems are ready to go?
Yeah, it's enormous. There's a lot of things that we're going to want to check. I think at a company like LinkedIn, there's a lot of different dependencies, right? There's a lot of different teams that you're working with when you're building a new product, such as stories ads that Arjun and I launched recently to beta. You're working across the consumer and monetization teams. So I think it really starts with kind of looking at the foundations, especially from a technical standpoint. Are the systems that are in place kind of ready to go for the scale and kind of how much traffic is gonna go against them? And so I think that like engineering and SRE level of readiness is kind of like the base and most fundamental thing to make sure that you're looking at and that you're ready. I think everything on top of that kind of graduates from it, and this is that first layer I think is very much kind of in the engineering domain, but as a product manager, as a product owner, there is that responsibility that falls on you to make sure that when it launches, it's ready. It's not going to go down, and that does fall on you as a product owner. From there, I think it is about the fundamental needs, right? Like, is this product at a point where it's meeting the things that customers, the jobs that customers are hiring it to do, right? Does it at least kind of go through that basic flow? In our case, we talk about delivering and demonstrating value using monetization products, right? So is it clear that this product like does something that's great for marketers, and is it clear that marketers can be clearly made aware of that value that they're getting from the product? And that's kind of one of the basic loops that we'll kind of want to understand based on both feedback and looking at the data and check before we go ahead and launch something out to all of our customers. And then from there, it's of course the feedback that we're getting from product marketing, from product operations, or other inputs that we have in the product development cycle, technical support, and other folks like that. And so we'll go through that and make sure that those that there aren't any major kind of escalations or issues that are coming up through those channels, as well as kind of the usual, from a marketing standpoint, there's collateral that we prepare for the sales team, help center articles that we're updating, things like that. Arjun, I know you just joined back. The question was the launch checklist that we kind of go through before we launch a product. Anything you want to add from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, apologies about that. Gil probably covered most of it, but on the marketing side are we, one, on the sales side, enabled our sellers for success? So have we built the materials, we built the things that they can use to help talk about the product? And then on the marketing side is our assets on all across digital, all across non-digital ready to go, such as website, landing page, blog post, press. So these are kind of the marketing checklists that we do at the end, right before launch as well.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that, and we kind of covered the product engineering side of the checklist. And on the go-to-market side, you mentioned you want to make sure your sales are enabled, you want to make sure all the right collateral is in place. Do you have like a running list of all collateral, all sales enablement things you need to do before each launch? Is it the same for every launch, or is it different? Like, and what are some of the factors that play into that?
We have, I would say, a general overview of what we do from every launch, but this year we're trying to do some more reinvention around what we want to focus on that is just one or two things different. How can we push the limit? How can we take something that we've done before and really reinvent it? For example, if we are doing a blog post, how can we partner with someone, a collaborator in a different part to get additional reach? Can we try out a new type of format that we haven't really used before? Maybe it's a webinar, maybe it's developing a app or something. So this is something that as a marketing team, we really try to push ourselves. We have a general stable of normal, tried and true, but what is one or two things that we can go that really takes it to the next level?
I really love this question coming from Nicola Presavento. How much time do you use to create new products for LinkedIn? How did the stories ads idea got created? And I think it's a relevant one for big companies and small companies, because for big companies, the question is like, how do you get this prioritized? And for smaller companies, like, how do you resource this? So curious, like, how you guys come up with building new things?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's hard to give one answer. I think it is a very different approach, kind of depending on the company size, right? When you're like trying to do innovation or new product development at like LinkedIn scale, it definitely is a longer and slower and more difficult process to move through, as the person kind of trying to drive that product development process, just given the number of people and systems and teams and different dependencies that you have, kind of across them all. I think on the story side, it's been in the works about 3 years. I think from like ideation and kind of experimenting with concepts and doing research and all the building that we had to do in order to get to the point where it's ready to serve the LinkedIn community at scale. 700 million members, use our platform. It's an enormous, it's an enormous undertaking to get to that point. So about 3 years on that side. There are other products that we've worked on that are definitely a lot faster. So when we talk about the feed monetization ecosystem, we definitely tend to move things more quickly there, given we're very tightly integrated with that team. When we created the ability to post a video to LinkedIn, I think we launched the monetization product about like 8 months later, 8 months after. Maybe total time for development was like a year and a half, something like that, in order to get the monetization product off the ground.
Great. We have about 5 minutes left in our discussion. I want to make sure we cover as much ground as possible. We have tons of questions coming in, so I'm trying to prioritize here. A question from Scott: what is your process for setting launch KPIs? I guess in both on the product and marketing. I don't know if you guys have shared the same KPIs. That's, I guess, another follow-up for me.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's an art and a science. There's definitely like an inexactness to it. I think especially with ecosystems that are very complex, right? But I think like setting the KPIs almost in terms of thinking about product development from my perspective is almost kind of like the opposite way of looking at it, right? I think it's kind of first and foremost, what are the KPIs that are important to the customer, especially from a product standpoint? And what are the products that move those, right? Like how do those KPIs really work and how do you move them, right? Because I think, and again, this might be something that's a little bit unique to marketing, right? But my customer as a product manager building like marketing products knows the KPIs better than I do in certain ways, right? Like marketers know what drives their business and what's important to them. And so, and from a product standpoint, I think it's synthesizing what's broadly important across many marketers and thinking about the products that move those the most. One example of a product that I worked on kind of early in my time at LinkedIn was our LinkedIn lead gen forms product, where you can get better lead gen data and get higher quality data at a lower cost as a demand gen focused marketer, using a form that pre-fills LinkedIn profile data when the member clicks on your ad. And that just gets you like much better leads at a lower cost. And that's the kind of thing where like it starts first and foremost at the need from a marketer standpoint, right? Like marketers want lower CPLs. That's like an invariant of the marketing ecosystem, right? Like marketers will always want lower CPLs. That's never going to change, right? So like, what is it that LinkedIn can do that moves that KPI? And so I think it's less about setting your KPIs and like going through a process of setting them. It's more about knowing what's important to the customer, building your KPIs based on that, right? And then thinking about the improvements that can move those. And I think as far as, how much you can move a given number, that is also like a tough question to answer. I think it depends on the product. For an ads like monetization product, it's an interesting exercise in that when you change things in the ad system, the way that different customers are kind of competing with each other in our auction and things like that are some of the dynamics that like make those kinds of changes unpredictable. So you're kind of eyeballing, like, I think if I move this, it'll move our click-through rate, for example, by 5%. But then you don't know exactly like what are the other implications as far as kind of the marketplace goes. I think at one point someone mentioned there are some folks from Uber here on the call. I'm assuming that when it comes to like, the marketplace for riders and drivers, there are some similar dynamics that are like really difficult to predict. And so that's kind of coming from marketing standpoint, probably something that's common across lots of products that are marketplaces in some way.
I would add, as Gil mentioned, customer value is so important. On what value are they getting versus the value your product is getting. And it is a delicate balance, but if you always operate on where are your value of your customers getting, are you reducing time for them? Are you reducing complexity? Are you increasing revenue for them? If you can ladder in your product to a eventual customer value benefit, nothing like it. And you're actually probably hit the sweet spot of a metric. I find even marketing too, your metrics can kind of focus too much on too little, on not really moving the dial in terms of, okay, maybe you're thinking about click-through rate or traffic or visits. If you can go one step further on how can I connect this to a deeper metric? Is it, customer satisfaction? Is it NPS? Is it churn rate that's going down? If you can pull and think one step deeper in both your product and marketing metrics and attach it to value, you'll be in a great place.
Great. I know we're at the 45 minutes, so if folks need to jump to a meeting or lunchtime for West Coast, please feel free to do that. So I really wanted to ask one last question because I think it's a super fun one. So if you can stay with that one, please do. Are there any personal projects or activities that you've done that helped you with your problem solving and projects at LinkedIn?
Working at a startup probably was, I think, the one for me. Before LinkedIn, I was at a search technology company called Quixie that raised a bunch of funding and was this crazy roller coaster of up and down. I think that was definitely like the most like the most difficult and most educational lesson in problem solving I think I've ever had. I don't know about you, Arjun.
Yes, this is a great question. For me, is actually pursuing creative ventures has helped me with problem solving. You'll be surprised if you're pursuing, writing, singing, drawing, something that is completely orthogonal to what your day-to-day job is. Your answers can kind of come to you at a point where your brain is probably processing it, but on a different mind. So would encourage everyone is continue to do your hobbies, try out something new this 2021. You maybe started something new in 2020 because a lot of the answers you can find outside of work there can maybe help you inside of work as well.
This is great. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Arjun. Thanks everyone who joined. We're at time. Reminder, you will get this recording in the next couple of days, as well as some helpful resources. And we appreciate you joining our fireside chat with Gil, Mark, and Arjun, Desai, and Mixed Panel.
Cool. Thanks for having us, Anya.
Thanks so much. And
cheers.
Bye.
Bye.